Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh. Yeah, 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 yeah. Faith without works is dead. I don't wanna die so soon. I got moves to make instead. I ain't scared, I'm prepared. Big ideas inside my head. I'm gon' make them manifest. And I'm dressed for success. I left, right, order my steps. Network, I ain't gotta do it by myself. Who you know, show me who you know. Better let them know we bout to blow. It's time to go, go, go. Yeah, 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 yeah. Go to work, go to work, go to work, get to work, yeah. Go to work, yeah. Go to work, go to work, go to work, get to work, yeah. Go to work, yeah, 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 yeah. I ain't tryna trade my time, yeah. Simply wanna show you what I'm worth, yeah. Daily I'ma stay on my grind. Have a little faith and go to work. Yeah, 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 yeah. Go to work. Yeah, 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 yeah. I'm on grind like every day, 'cause I want everything. I can do anything. Check my resume. It's people against you. They see what you've been through. But look in the mirror, tap into your spirit. There's power within you. Like LinkedIn, I'm locked in, get the job done when I clock in. I weighed out my options, put the work in, that's action, no lacking, just stacking. Big dreams I'm attracting, no accidents, that's fate. Just go in and have a little faith. And faith without works is dead. I don't wanna die so soon. I got moves to make instead, I ain't scared, I'm prepared. Big ideas inside my head, I'm gon' make them manifest. And I'm dressed for success. I left, right, order my steps. Network, I ain't gotta do it by myself. Who you know, show me who you know. Better let them know we bout to blow. It's time to go, go, go. Go to work, get to work, yeah. Go to work, yeah. Go to work, go to work, get to work, yeah. Go to work, yeah, 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 yeah. I ain't tryna trade my time, yeah. Simply wanna show you what I'm worth, yeah. Daily I'ma stay on my grind, yeah. Have a little faith and go to work. Yeah, 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 yeah. Go to work. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, now go nuts, go nuts, go nuts, donuts, 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 donuts.
Welcome to the Who You Know Show, where what you know is important, but who you know? Who you know can make all the difference in your business, your career, your relationships, and your life. Guys, I'm super excited. We've got an amazing show for you today. And I want to give a special shout out to those of you that are online listening to us right now. I really appreciate all the reshares and reposts and all of the online reviews and podcast reviews. Everybody has been just doing an amazing job paying it forward lately. So I just want to say thank you so much. And obviously, I cannot forget our live studio audience. Woo! Let's rock, let's roll, let's go. Let's go. And so for those of you that are here with us live, first of all, thank you so much. You could be anywhere and you're here with us today, so we appreciate you. You should have this little handout right here that's going to give you all the information to our podcast. So if you want to, subscribe, you know what I'm saying? You might want to go ahead and do that. You might want to go ahead and give a review too. That'd be awesome. And then we have our Career Transition Summit to show you how to recover your cash flow, right? So how many of you in the audience right now are actively seeking new opportunities? Go ahead and raise your hand. Actively seeking new opportunities.
Ooh,
all right.
All right.
Amazing.
Got a lot of folks to help today.
That's right. That's right. Because today, I am super honored and privileged to have our guest today, Ken Coleman, because let me just tell you something. This guy is an absolute legend. I've been following you, Ken, for quite some time. I've been emulating, okay? My thumbnails look very similar, okay? I'm just saying, all right? I've been emulating your style, and I just love what you do, and the impact that you're having and the amount of people that you get to serve is incredible. And so if I can get everybody to give me a warm, welcome for Ken Coleman. Let's go.
Thank you very much, Trev. Good to be with you, man.
Well, I'm so glad you're here, and so the way that all of this, guys, came about was about, it was a who you know moment, okay? So I was actually introduced to Ken through Amberly Lago, who I've built a very strong relationship with. She's been on this show a couple of times, and she's just an amazing person. So shout out to Amberly for setting this up. But let me go ahead and formally introduce Ken for you guys. So Ken is a nationally syndicated radio host. He's a best-selling author and an expert advisor at Ramsey Solutions. And with his guidance, countless individuals have discovered their true calling and successfully achieved their dream job. So you guys are in the right place. I want you to know that right now, okay? So, Ken, I'd really like to just get started into your journey. What brought you into the world of radio? That's actually where we started this show, was radio. So I'd like to hear from you. How did you get started in nationally syndicated radio and even becoming an author? How did that all come about?
Well, I got started on Saturday afternoons at 2 o'clock where I had to pay $250 for the privilege to broadcast for an hour. And Saturday afternoons at 2 o'clock on AM talk radio in the South, there's about 7 people listening. So... I love when people ask that question of me because it allows me to really answer the question honestly, authentically, but also principally. And the start always sucks. And I think we need to have more people embrace that.
Was there still pressure? Even though there were 7 people, was there still pressure?
Man, I remember the first broadcast, I couldn't generate spit. Literal spit. My mouth was so dry because when you walk into a radio studio for the first time and you do a show, and I had spoken, I've been on stages my whole life, but there's a difference between the gift of gab and the experience to be able to handle the emotional and mental pressure, because that's what it is. It's a vice. Squeeze between your emotions because you don't want to suck. You got some loved ones listening and things of that nature. You got a few people listening, but it feels like the way the world is on you when the music starts and you see the countdown and the producer's across from me going like this, and all of a sudden you got 8 minutes, which when you start out 8 minutes feels like 8 hours. Now 8 minutes now is like I'm barely warmed up, And so in that moment, I was terrified. It looks like a cockpit of a jet plane. All these monitors in front of you, and you're trying to watch the clock. You're trying to have a coherent thought. It was a lot. But I will tell you, it was a great experience. In fact, I tell a lot of people that want to get into the game. I inevitably get a lot of people say, hey, how can I get into the world you're in? I want to be a speaker and a writer. And I always tell people that they need to try to do live radio or television, just because it's a gauntlet and it's the best thing for you to learn how to survive.
Hold on. I'm going to give you a mic drop for that.
Oh, wow, I wasn't ready for that.
You weren't ready for that?
It scared me a little bit.
Well, let me explain why. So
we
do something here called mic drop moments, okay?
Oh, okay, good.
All right. And I gave you a mic drop for that because that was where our journey started, was live. Yeah. It was live stream, right? Live stream radio.
That's right.
And it does create a lot of pressure, but with pressure creates diamonds, right?
Yeah, I mean, listen, every one of us watching, listening, our live studio audience can remember back to the day when we were little kids, however old you were, when mom and dad said it's time to learn to ride a bike. And whether you had training wheels, I'm talking about when the day comes when the training wheels come off. And maybe mom and dad are holding on to the back of that seat for a bit and running with you. And at some point they let go, and at some point you wreck. And when you get up, and you may not have any skin on your leg, but you've learned something. And you get back up on that bike and you figure it out. But it is the threat of the rest of the skin on the other side of your leg coming off that essentially makes you learn to ride that bike. And I think that we've gotten into a place in America for sure where we've taken away the sting of failure. And I'm just going to tell you, we need to teach people to embrace failure, because when I embrace failure, I am learning something and I am also building something. What I'm learning is how not to fail the next time, how to do it better. But even more important, I'm building grit. I'm building that muscle that I am okay. I may stick to the sheets for 3 nights, but I know how to ride a bike. And so that's the idea. And so I think live performance for a person who wants to be a communicator is really important.
Do you think that trait of like learning through your mistakes, do you think that's innate in most people? Or do you think...
yes, if we let them. But if we're helicopter parents, we take that away from them.
Oh.
You know, the natural proclivity of a human is to crave progress. You don't have to teach a human being to crave progress. But you can desensitize that. In other words, you can parent them out of that. Because if you're always protecting them, you essentially create an anxious human being. And that's why anxiety is skyrocketing in our world today, because of bike helmets and elbow pads.
Oh.
Yeah, I'm gonna give one out.
It's 2.
Yeah,
It's 2.
So
It's 3. I'm going for double digits here. Now I'm competing.
Let's go.
I've got 3 young boys. They're 8, 6, and 4.
Yeah.
And you are right on the money. I mean, as far as what we've seen is we've been overprotective.
Sure.
Just by nature of being parents. And so I have seen where it's either you're overprotective or, like in your case, where if you're failing and somebody is harsh about that, which we have caught ourselves being like, well, not harsh, but like critical, right? And then that also makes you not want to continue or not want to try. It demotivates you. It removes that grit, I think, from that learning process. So a question that I have is, so you experienced that. You've got your books, and I don't know which came first. I think I know, and you can tell us. But what has been driving you? Why did you get into this whole topic, this whole industry?
Why careers in the first place, right?
Yeah, well, I would say I'm in the business of helping people do what they were born to do.
Okay.
So it has work and career context, but where it comes from is, number one, I was born in a home where my mom and dad made it very clear to us that we needed to appreciate history in order to make history.
Ooh.
And so I grew up in that environment where I had a sense of men and women who were very intentional. I like that he's getting ready.
Yeah.
Now,
Oh, yeah. We're getting loaded. We're getting loaded.
like-
over here.
I'm loading up here.
Guy's grabbing a mic when I'm in my answer now that I'm feeling the pressure, and I love it. This is good because I'm ready for it. All
Let's
right.
go.
So at 16, fast forward. So I grew up in an environment like that, where I very much heard the words and phrases like "you were created," God has a calling on your life, and so that was just very normal. And so when you speak in terms like that, your kids don't understand it at first, Mark, but then they get to the point where they go, "What do you mean by that, Dad?" And you begin to describe it, and your kids begin to, it's okay, what's that look like? And so I was always wondering, God, what do you have for my life? Fast forward, at 16 years of age, I'm sitting in a school assembly, a state senator by the name of Mark Earley, who went on to become the Attorney General of the Commonwealth of Virginia, where I grew up. He challenged us to think of civic duty as a calling. And so I'm sitting there, and at 16 felt like I was supposed to run for office one day and that I was going to serve in a public role to make the lives of people better. And so that became the driving goal for me at 16. Fast forward, I go to college. I volunteer on a national presidential race. I get the taste of battle. I go back to school. I take a semester off my sophomore year to work on a congressional race in 1994. So I worked my way from driver. I was driving the candidate, and I had a captive audience. So I started telling him what I thought. And he ended up hiring me, and I took a semester of school off. And so from there, I went to work on 5 or 6 other campaigns at 22. So I dropped out of college on purpose because I didn't need it. I had already tasted battle. And so I'm 22 running 3 congressional districts.
Wow.
In Virginia. for a governor's race. We win, and I'm working for the governor of Virginia at 22. I do it for a year, and I'm dying because governing is way slower than politicking and campaigning. And I hated all the bureaucracy. So I get into the private sector, and I move through several executive jobs. It's great. I'm setting myself up to run for office with a real leadership resume. And at 32, I wake up one day, and I'm fed up with politics, both sides of the aisle. And I just began to lose the taste for it. The fire in the belly wasn't there. I begin to question, is that where I'm supposed to go? But
that might be a good age to do it. I have a question for that. How important is it to get those W's, get those wins? Because it sounds like you were very active very early, right?
Oh, yeah.
How important is that for a young person's success and in their career?
Well, I think it's very important. I think that, we need kids. I mean, I'm all for a gap year. I know that's like a swear phrase to a lot of parents in this country. But, I think if we could have kids, some type of national merit service program where we just took the pressure off of college for kids for a year, even 2 years. There it is. We're keeping score. And let kids work and do things. And I think that would be huge. So anyway, to wrap the answer, I'm 32 and I've been driven towards one path, and now it's not the path. And then I begin to get confused. Did I waste a decade? To your point, I had not. It had prepared me for what I'm doing now.
Right.
With speaking and campaigning and all that. So all that to say, I'm sitting there going, I'm at a crossroads, and I'm 8 years from 40, and I started freaking out, and I got depressed, and I got anxious, and all these things. And I knew that I'd always been very driven and very focused, and all of a sudden, I didn't have a destination. And so the heart of everything I teach comes from my own journey, where I had to figure it out. I didn't have the books. I didn't have the Get Clear assessment that I've created. I just had to go do some self-discovery and figure out from my story, which is experience and environment, plus getting truly clear on who I am, what am I good at, what do I love to do, what results motivate me. And I didn't have the language as I spit it out very clearly and quickly to you now. I didn't have that, but I had to figure it out. And as I figured it out and realized that God wanted me to move into broadcasting with no degree, no experience, and walk that long journey, 7 years, man, getting rejected, people telling me I wasn't good enough, all this kind of stuff. It has become my life's mission to help people see their uniqueness and to make that contribution that they were created to make.
Round of applause, guys. Come on. Let's go.
I've been waiting for that. I got a couple things that I heard you say. Number one, I love the mentality that you had, the civic duty aspect.
Yeah.
I'm a veteran.
Oh, thank you for your service.
Thank you. It's been an honor, and I love having been a veteran. I wasn't born in this country, but I am very patriotic. I love this country. I love the opportunity that I've gotten here. And it kills me that we have this culture of apathy around the love of our country.
Yeah.
Number one, first and foremost. And then the other thing that you said, which is very impactful, which is service, right? And being of service. And that's part of what drove you. And that's why I asked the question, because, it's not like, this is a job, right, for a lot of us. So, and this could be a job, right? This isn't our main job or our primary job, but we're doing it for money. If you're doing it for money, it's your job. And we're not doing it for money. You're not doing what you do necessarily for money. It's the passion behind that. And so that's the other thing that I got from it. Love it. So can you tell us, there's multiple steps in your book about how people can basically differentiate themselves, right? Find their purpose. And can you tell us a little bit about those steps?
Yeah, there's 7 stages that we all can walk to discover that unique role and then do it well. First is get clear. And what I mean by get clear is just simple self-awareness, okay? So there's 5 little exercises. If I were coaching your entire audience live, watching around the world, there's 5 areas of awareness that we all have got to get to. Number one, what do we do well? This is talent. So all of us come into this world hardwired with things we do better than average, and people compliment us for it. They're hard skills and soft skills. We understand that. Second is what moves my heart. And these next 2 elements are heart-based. The first one is kind of technical in that my talent are tools. And if I develop the talent, I can turn them into sharpened skills. In other words, power tools. You know what I'm talking about?
The Binford.
Yeah. And then we talk about heart next. So passion. What do I love to do? There are tasks, there are roles that all of us look forward to, and then when we get in the middle of it, time seems to just disappear. The third element is mission, a sense of motivation. There's two types of motivation, intrinsic and extrinsic. We don't need to get scientific today, but we're talking about intrinsic motivation. What makes a person get up at 5 a.m. to run 5 miles? It's not because they're crazy, although there's a little bit of that in there.
A little crazy in there. Yeah.
But there's a deep motivation that makes them do that. And so if we look at those three things there, that's where we begin to see the ideas start to formulate. Oh, I'm really good at this. I love to do this. And I'm really passionate. I care about these results. Now, there's two other elements. So we got talent, what I do best, passion, what I love to do, and mission, what motivates me. But then there's two other elements. And this is a part of your story. So you've got a story. You've got a story. I've got a story. All these people have a story. And there's two parts of the story. Number one, my environment. What kind of environment did I grow up in? Good, bad, and ugly, it shapes us.
Absolutely.
And then the experience part of my story. This is what I've lived through. In other words, my victories, my defeats, people who've helped me, people who've hurt me. If you understand that, live audience, say yes. Yes.
Yeah.
And so we look back at our story and we go, oh, through my environment and my experience, that has shaped my heart. And then the creator of the universe gave me talent, gave me passion, and a sense of mission. So we put all that together, and now we have a very clear representation, Mark, of who we actually are. We are very unique. And so when I can see how unique I am, then the ideas begin to develop. So we want to get clear. All right, now I'll roll through the rest of them really quick. Once I'm clear on what I want to do, now I got to figure out how to do it.
Right.
And that's stage 2, get qualified. So am I getting a college degree? Maybe, maybe not. But I've got to go get some learning, and then I've got to practice the learning, and then I can now get to the place where I get a chance to punch my ticket. And then the third stage is get connected. It's a lot of what you guys are teaching. You know, connections come through, opportunities come through connections. And it is about who you know.
That's it. What'd you say?
Who you know.
Woo! There you go.
Come on.
So I got to ask you, is that what this is about?
Yeah, that's a deep dive into the power of proximity.
The power of proximity. Okay.
Yeah, so stage 4 is get started. Once I'm connected, I get opportunities. People show up to me, give me a shot. I get started. I'm on the ladder, and now I'm moving into stage 5, which is get promoted. I'm moving up the ladder, and eventually I'm going to get promoted into the dream job, stage 6, which again, the dream job is this. It's not a unicorn that's impossible. A lot of people think the dream job is a fairy tale. Like for me, if I used the wrong definition of dream job, it would be to be an NBA basketball player. I love the game of basketball, but look at me. Okay, I'm 5'9". I can barely jump over paper. I mean, it's not happening. Okay, I can't. I mean, if you put a sheet of paper down there, I got to stretch to get over it. You know what I mean? But the point is that's a fantasy. A dream job is defined by me spending most of my day using what I do best, talent, to do what I love, passion, to produce the results that matter to me. The reason we call it a dream is because it's a longing. So a dream is not a fantasy. A dream is a longing. Dreams are God-given. They're the desires of the heart. And we got to stop teaching kids that dreams are fantasies. We got to teach kids that dreams are desires that are unique to them. The final stage is give yourself away. Where we are working, Mark, as you're describing now, I'm not working for money. I'm working for meaning now. It is about impacting as many people as possible.
Hold on. Watch this.
Oh.
So, okay, you had said something a minute ago that I wanted to touch on, which was motivation, right? And what would you say to somebody who maybe had all of those things and they had their purpose and their mission and all of these things, and then maybe they got that axe from corporate America, right? They're getting let go, furloughed, fired, right? And they lose their motivation. They're in a spot where they're feeling a little bit hopeless, worthless, you know, a little bit stressed out. You know what I'm talking about? I'm sure you see that all the time.
Yeah. I would say they haven't lost their motivation. What they have lost is focus. They're focused on the wrong thing. They're focused on, I've been hurt, I've been rejected, I've been wounded, I'm not making money. I mean, these are real reactions. You know, I've had so many calls from spouses on my show who are calling on behalf of a spouse, and they'll say something like, "Hey, he got let go, and he's not motivated," and I feel like, and I can hear a tinge of, he needs to get off of his butt, or she needs to get off of her butt. And one of the things I would say to that person who's experiencing that is, if you're not careful, you'll start to feel bad about yourself, and you'll start to look at yourself as lazy. Because you're hurt, and you're afraid to put yourself out there. And I remember saying this one time to a lady, and she started crying when I said it on the show. I said, "Ma'am, do you feel like your husband's lazy?" And she said, "Yes." And I said, "Can I just tell you, he's not lazy, he's lost." And there's a big difference. Who among us, when we don't know which way to go, is not paralyzed? The greatest fear, as I've seen it in life, having counseled over 10,000 people, is the fear of the unknown. If you've ever been driving in a car and you have a torrential downpour, or you drive in a crazy fog, you immediately hit the brakes. You are pulling over. And I would just say that person who's gone through that, the data does not lie. And we know from psychology studies that they equate being fired or laid off as the same level of trauma as losing a loved one.
Absolutely.
So I point that out to say we need to get to the point where we stop feeling bad about ourselves and we allow ourselves to feel bad. And in other words, we've got to heal. We've got to heal after getting laid off or fired, because if we don't, we're dragging around an open wound, and it's really hard to move forward when you're injured. So that's my perspective on that.
No, I totally agree with you. It is like a loss, and people go through the stages of grief.
Yeah, for sure.
Through it, right?
For sure.
I try to tell people to try to go through those stages as quickly as possible. I don't know if you would agree with that, but
100%. And by the way, the quickest way to do that is to do it with other people.
Oh, okay.
Don't isolate yourself. What we tend to go and lick our wounds and kind of go hang out and watch Netflix and just eat a lot of ice cream or whatever it is. And I think what we've got to do is we've got to be okay crying on other people's shoulder and moping around other people. The worst thing you can do is cry alone and mope alone. But it's great to cry around people that care for you and mope around people that care for you. It's okay, because enough crying and pouting and moping around the right people, you'll get it out of your system, and they'll love you through it, and they'll get you over it. But you cannot do it alone.
You know, you're absolutely right. So I just recently, about a month ago, I lost my grandma, who was like a mother to me, and I grew up with her, and she raised me and all that kind of stuff, and it was really hard. But like I put out some content actually, and the community, the comments, the love,
lifted you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
In a dark time, dark season, it lifted me, and so not doing it alone, and it helped me kind of get through it quicker than I thought I was going to. I thought I knew it was coming, and I was like, this is going to suck for me.
Yeah.
I'm going to be destroyed for a long time.
Yeah.
But I got through it pretty quickly.
I'll give you a couple people that, just real quick.
Yeah.
You need a cheerleader. So when you're going through loss, whether it be loss of a loved one or you've been fired or laid off or whatever, you need to be around a cheerleader. That's the person that just goes, "You're awesome. You're going to be great. You're going to be better." They're like the golden retriever in your life. They're just licking you, jumping all over you. They're great. Don't lick anybody. That'd be really weird. You got to be careful in this day and age. So you got to have that cheerleader. You also need the comedian. You need some people that you can just be around and they just make you laugh, and you enjoy being around them. That's a good one. You need a coach. You need that coach person in your life who goes, "Hey, yeah, you know what? You just lost, but let's look at the game film. What do we learn? What can we do?" Those are three people that I'll just throw out really quick. If you go through times of trial with those kind of people, I think you'll find you'll snap out of it pretty quick.
You said this throughout and had this theme, and we are a faith-based show.
Oh, good.
By the way,
because I was almost preaching a minute ago.
You bring it, man.
No, you bring it, because
let's go.
That's my question.
But be careful. I'm telling you.
There you go. There you go.
All right.
Bring it. So
now, I just want to warn you, I may take an offering. You know what I'm saying?
Hold on. Wait.
Watch out. Sorry, Mark, you're trying to ask a question.
No, that's quite all right, because I love it. And we are a faith-based show, and we've tried to incorporate that in a lot of the things that we do, that we help people with, that we coach and mentor people with. We've talked about the stages of grief and how that ties in and plays in with a loss of a job and a transition. How do you incorporate your faith and biblical principles to what you teach?
Oh, I'm so glad you teed me up on this. Okay, so Psalm 139, 13, and 14, my two favorite verses of Scripture in the Bible. David, the psalmist, is saying, and this is so powerful, he says, "For you knit me together in my mother's womb." You know, he says,
Yes.
you knew me well, but he uses that phrase, and he uses that analogy, and that's what inspired me to come up with those three elements: talent, passion, mission. David uses the metaphor of knitting. And so there are threads. And he says, you knew me in my mother's womb. You knit me together. And this idea of creative and intelligent design. And so my theology from Psalm 139, 34, he says, it goes on in verse 14 to say, I am uniquely and wonderfully made. Those are powerful words that David uses there. Uniquely speaks to the very specific creative combination that I am, that you are. Okay. Then he says wonderfully, which I think is great. You know, the word wonder is a word we don't use properly anymore. You know what I mean? It's kind of become like, oh, that's wonderful, whatever. But the root word of wonderful is, say it, wonder. And so there's a childlike wonder that we all come into this world with. Isn't it true?
Yes.
You know, we got parents in the audience and grandparents. And so kids come into the world hardwired to ask questions. They ask 1,000 questions a day. Literally. Are they trying to be obnoxious? No. They're trying to get to the bottom of things. There is a childlike wonder. And we get into the 8th grade in this country, America, and according to the University of Michigan, you've heard me say this, Mark, we are asking about 2 to 3 questions a day. The average 8th grader is asking 2 to 3 questions a day. We are pounding the curiosity out of our kids. So you ask me, how does Scripture or my faith inform everything I teach? It is the theology that God in Genesis chapter 2 introduces work. Now this is the God of the universe. You said this is a faith-based show. I'm going to bring it right now.
Let's go.
Let's hear it.
So the God of the universe, who is omnipotent, works so hard in creating the world that he's got to take a break on day 7. So our Creator worked. If you look throughout the Bible, just do something fun, all you faith-based nerds out there. Search up the word work and see how many times the word work appears in the Scripture. It's unbelievable how many times it's in there, and it's throughout the entire Bible. So all that to say, our Creator worked. He created us in His image. Imago Dei is what the Bible is. That's the proper description of that we are created in His image. 2 Timothy 2:15 says, we are study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman who needs not be ashamed. You know, I could just keep going
The
on.
Awana theme.
No, listen.
Yeah, so-
The Awana theme.
Listen, work saved my life.
Yeah.
Okay.
How?
Because I have a juvenile background. I was getting in a lot of mess. Okay. And, I was in and out of juvie and was supposed to be thrown away until I was 21. And by the grace of God, I got a second chance at life. And that second chance introduced me to work. Okay. And work, it wasn't until I found something that I was obsessed with work-wise, that I could have a positive place to put and channel my energy, that things really started to turn around for me. Because I had all this energy and everybody's like, you're ADD and ADHD and you need to take a pill. No, I didn't need that. What I needed was a positive place to channel my energy. I needed work, and I didn't have that.
That's right. Absolutely right. So all that to say, if you want to know what's going on in society, I can tell you it's not politics. It's not the major problem. It is a lack of identity. I've never seen human identity under attack like it is in today's world. I'm not going to say anything to freak anybody out. I'm not going to get involved in any socio-political issues on your show today. But when we have people that don't know who they are, who they love, why they are the way they are, this is an attack from Satan, from the pit of hell. And the number one way he attacks people is through their identity. And I'm telling you right now, there's an attack on work. Through all kinds of government programs. There's a no work movement on one of these freaking water cooler websites, and it's like, and everybody wants to get paid to just sit around. And I'm here to tell you that you as a human being were created to contribute.
Yes.
And when you do not contribute a result that matters deeply to you, your soul is slowly dying. And I don't care if you're an atheist, a Democrat, a Republican, I don't care what country you're from, all of us long to make a difference in this world.
Let's go. Man.
I may need to put some goggles on. That one will pop up.
Listen, I'm almost out over here. You know what I'm saying?
All right, good. Let's empty it.
We're going to for sure. I do want to kind of switch gears just a little bit. Okay, I want to go back to your show. You've interviewed throughout your career. You've interviewed some very, very large names. Who would you say has been one of your most impactful or memorable interviews, and why? Who would that person be?
He's always at the top of the list because it was the first interview I ever got a chance to do. It's a crazy God story. I don't have time to unpack it all, but I was the fill-in. I was working for John Maxwell, leadership guru, and I got the chance to interview Coach K, the legendary Duke coach, on the floor of Cameron Indoor Arena at Duke. And it was a leadership interview for an hour. It was so special. We connected. He later endorsed my first book. He was just so impactful in what he said. He shared so many nuggets. I'm a huge basketball fan and grew up, liking Duke and because I just liked their shoes. I mean, it's before I knew Duke. I like a lot of people hate Duke, and I understand that. I don't have some affiliation to them. I just grew up liking them, and I thought Johnny Dawkins was like the coolest point guard I ever seen. Left-handed, African American. No connection to me. But so all you Duke haters, just spare me. But every time I say that, you wouldn't believe the grief I get online. People hate Duke. I get it. But anyway, it was a special interview. I would tell you that interviewing Mike Rowe was really special.
Oh, yeah.
We have a lot in common as we talk about
jobs,
dirty
right?
jobs.
Yeah.
Talk a lot about the value of work. Man, I tell you, there's some. I interviewed Condoleezza Rice.
Oh, wow.
Condoleezza Rice is a true hero. Her story, she represents what I think is the pure American dream. She grew up in a very segregated South Alabama and rose to the top of our education and political and now business world. She's the second female member at Augusta National. She's broken barriers. So that was a special interview with her as well. I mean, I could go on and on and on. It's going to sound like I'm dropping names, and that's obnoxious.
Well, yeah. But, okay, so you also, on your show, right, you like to take live questions.
Yeah, it's my favorite thing in the world.
Right?
Yeah.
So you had mentioned the wife who said that her husband was lazy.
Yeah.
Right? What other kind of stories like that do you have where you've been able to kind of reshape someone's perspective on what's actually happening?
I think one of the calls that sticks out to me is one day I got a call from a guy who said, Ken, I've got two options. I want to change gears. I think he was in pharmaceutical sales. And I said, okay, what are they? He says, one is I want to become I think a doctor. It was it was a specialty. So it was like anesthesiologist or something along those lines. And I said, well, what's the other one? He said, it's a therapist for children. And I had a sense that when someone calls and they give me a either or, this is early on in the show. I now know that it's always the heart one, and their brain's telling them one, and the heart's telling them another. And so I dug a little bit, and I said, which one are you leaning to? He said, becoming a doctor. I said, okay. I said, I just don't sense that that's what you really want to do. And he goes, why? Why do you sense that? I said, well, let me just ask you. Why are you even interested in being a therapist for children? And I knew there was a story. What I did not know is he just began to tell me, and as he did, he began to just weep uncontrollably, could barely get through it. And he basically said, I was molested sexually as a child. And when someone shares that with you, I mean, first of all, it's tough to hear that when you're in a room with them one-on-one. This is live on the air.
Right.
This guy's bearing his soul. It needs to be handled very, very delicately. And quite frankly, I'd never taken a call like that. And so God gave me some grace, and I just let it happen. And he just wept. And he went on to say, and I don't want that to happen to any other kid. I want to help kids go through that. And I was crying. I was choking a little bit, and I'm trying not to choke now. And I said to him something along the lines of, you need to follow your heart here. And you want to step in the gap for kids that have gone through this horrific experience, and you've managed to come out of it. And you've got something to give. And I think that's what you got to do. And he just kept crying, thank you. He was crying. And I was grateful that we had a commercial break for me to gather myself. That's certainly, that's something where, again, you asked, and it's very important that you hear this. You asked it in a way it's like something I've been able to do. in that situation, I'm not doing anything other than asking questions, and I'm digging. And I say that not to be falsely humble, but to make sure that people understand that the greatest thing we can do for other people many times when they're seeking our advice, even a spouse, is just ask more questions and dig behind the heart. So,
no, that's good. That's good.
Yeah,
I mean,
you just got to dig.
That's right. You're digging when you ask good questions, and you're also kind of it leads them, right? It starts to lead them to their own conclusions a lot of times.
Yeah.
Like you're not having to tell them anything. They're like, by asking good questions, they'll come up a lot of times.
Yeah,
with
you
their
know,
own
you're just
conclusion.
uncovering the fear or the doubt or the pride. Those are the three enemies of progress. I got to give it to you really quick. There's three enemies of progress. They're all thoughts. The fear is I'm worried that something bad is going to happen. Doubt is I don't believe that something good is going to happen. And pride is I care more about what other people think than what I believe.
Ooh.
And so I can just tell you all, if you're in a place of confusion and uncertainty, it is because fear, doubt, and pride, think of them as heavy, heavy, heavy blankets on your heart. And you got to pull those off. And when you do it, you can feel your heart beating, and that's the idea.
I love that explanation of pride, though, right? The fear of what other people are thinking about you. Like that I've never heard it put that way. That is a beautiful explanation.
Thank you.
Well, how do we get past that? How do you rip it off, man, so I can hear this?
Which one? Fear, doubt, or pride? Which one? All of them? Okay, it's the same thing for all of them. Okay, so picture your courtroom drama, whatever your favorite movie or television show was, and you got to put the voice of fear, doubt, and pride on the witness stand.
Okay, I like this. Let's go.
Right. So you put it up there, and you got to do it this way. You get very specific. So let's say you're afraid. Then I want to go, what are you afraid of? Well, I'm afraid of failure. No, be specific. I want you to write it down. So I'm afraid that if I do this and fail, then this. So that, you see what I'm saying? And so you can't just say I'm afraid of failure. That's a cop-out. What specifically are you afraid of? And you got to run it out and get very specific. Then once we write the voice down, we look at that and we go, what are the chances of that happening? I'll give you an example. Personal call on the show. I'm afraid that if I move from accounting to cyber security, I'm going to fail. I go, great. Let's play that out. What does failure look like? Well, that I'll get fired. And I was like, okay, great. And then you're going to be living under a bridge, homeless, starving. And they always laugh. No. Okay, great. So that's not going to happen. That's your worst fear, right? Yeah. Okay, so then what must be true for you to fail and get fired? You're going to be a doofus, do something wrong with your character, not do your training. I mean, and you start playing it out with people and they laugh like the audience just did. And so what happens is I'm putting the fear on the witness stand. Is there any evidence that this fear is telling the truth? Because sometimes fear is protecting us. Okay, like if I get up on let's say we go hiking today, and I'm up on a tall mountain, and I get over the edge, and a couple pebbles tumble down into the crevice below, and I'm overcome with a sense of fear. Is fear telling me the truth there?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's saying, back up, or you're going to die, right? But if I do what's necessary to get trained, to get qualified, to get connected, I get a job, and I move from one industry to the next, me living under a bridge, homeless and starving, it's not true. It's not going to happen. So that's the idea. And I could go through doubt the same way. You know, doubt is I don't believe anything good's going to happen. Pride is, I'll tackle pride because Mark's right. This is the one we don't talk about enough. So pride would be, okay, I'll give you an example. So a guy called the show recently. He's in a family business. He's the heir apparent. His dad's tapped him to be the guy that replaces him. He don't want it. That's tough. Because daddy wants him to have it. He don't want it. He knows exactly what he wants to do. And so we're walking through this on the air, and I just said, man, you're just gripped with pride. And he's a very humble guy. And I think he was kind of like, what? I said, the voice of pride says that I'm more worried about what daddy's going to think and say at Thanksgiving and Christmas. And the day I walk in the office and tell him, Dad, I don't want it. I'm more worried about that than I am what I believe about my future and what my heart longs for. And so that's the power of that. And so we got to get to the point where, and this is what I tell people, I would rather you disappoint someone than resent them. Because if you disappoint daddy, he'll eventually get over it. Yeah, that's a good one. You should hit that.
That is a great one.
And so I would.
I'm saving the best for last.
Okay, good.
Here,
I'll
I'll loan you a couple.
And so the idea is, now watch how this works. If I do what I know I'm supposed to do, and there are some people that are disappointed, friends and family, coworkers, whatever, they'll get over it. But if I don't do it because I'm worried about what they're going to say or think, then many years from now, I'm going to resent them. And see, disappointment's on them, resentment's on you. And it's a cancer of the soul. So, that's the deal. You got to put it on the witness stand. Is it telling you the truth, or is it lying to you and holding you back? And most of the time it's lying to you, because most people have common sense. There's some morons out there with no common sense, but they don't listen to my show, and I can't help them anyway.
That's right.
But,
All right, so I've got a couple of more questions, and then I want to make sure that we save some time for the audience so they can get some questions out for you. One of the questions I had was about how you got connected with the Dave Ramsey Network and what it's like to work with that legend.
Yeah, so fun story. So I'm early on in this journey of wanting to be a host, and I realized I'm going to have to get some interview chops. I'm going to have to develop some on-air skills, and I don't have any on-air opportunities, but I go up to some buddies of mine who I'd worked with that worked for John Maxwell. I'd worked for John, went out on my own to pursue this deal, and I came up with an idea for a podcast, and also emceeing their leadership event called Catalyst. At the time, at 12,000 leaders that came to this conference every October. And so I said, guys, I'm curious. I'll do the homework. Let's start this Catalyst podcast. This is like 15 years ago. Podcasts weren't a thing. Like, they looked at me like I had horns growing out of my head. True story. When I went and pitched this idea, we actually had iPods.
Oh, yeah.
Some of you remember iPods, but it was like this thing, and you thought it was the coolest thing in the world. You could spin your thumb around and get to your song. It was unbelievable. And so podcasting was brand new. So I went and took that idea, and then they started letting me interview people, and I got the opportunity to interview Tony Dungy in front of 12,000 people.
Wow.
12,000 leaders. And I interviewed Tony Dungy. And Dave Ramsey was sitting on the front row because he was speaking next. So he saw me do that, and then I interviewed him a few times on the podcast, the Catalyst podcast, and we had mutual friends. My wife used to work for him years ago in a different season of our life, and so he knew of me. We didn't know each other very well, but he began to see me on stage, and he paid attention. He was the third guest ever on the very first version of the Ken Coleman Show on a Saturday. Dave went into the office and gave me 2 segments.
Oh, wow.
And so he just believed in me and was paying attention, and I didn't realize it, and eventually asked me to come join him. So that's the short version.
Very cool.
But it's the proximity principle.
Yes.
Right.
Like when you are around people, the proximity principle, by the way, it's a best-selling book. It's a very simple idea. In order to do what you want to do, you've got to be around people that are doing it and in places that it is happening. And I did both. I was at this leadership conference interviewing these well-known men and women. And so I was building a relationship with them, albeit professional, but still building. And I was hanging around green rooms and talking and asking questions. And now I get to sit in those same green rooms and share stages with them. And I wish I could say it was genius. It's not. It's just sheer gumption.
I love what you're saying, actually, because it leads me into the next question, which has all to do with the proximity principle.
See, I knew that.
I actually got a text message just now. I'm like looking at it from Amberly Lago, who was the proximity. She's the reason why you're sitting here on that chair today.
That's right.
And so it's all about who you know, right? It's all about networking and connections.
Yeah.
And what I'm looking to do, I'm looking to level up this show. I'm looking for world changers, people who are doing things, motivation, education, inspiration, right? Because our audience, as I mentioned to you earlier before the show, a lot of times they are feeling worthless, hopeless, broken. They're feeling like, they've lost their sense of purpose. And so I'm looking for people who can light them up. So who's the first person that kind of comes to your mind that you think would be a good fit for that chair right there?
To sit here?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man, who wouldn't be? Man, I tell you what. I'd get John Gordon on this. John Gordon's a good friend of mine. He's in the positive leadership and just positivity space. I think they would really benefit from his message and books. I think there's a guy named David Nurse, a young guy that coaches a lot of NBA shooters, and now he's like a coach, a mindset coach. I think he'd be a good guest. Just about everybody I've ever had on my show. Just go down my show list.
Is that all I got to do? Is that it? Guys, I got that recorded. Hold up. Is that it?
I'm saying if you're saying for ideas, and I'll make connections. Absolutely, man. My producer will send you any connection that you want that we've ever interviewed.
Wow. Well, yeah, let's do it.
Man, he threw the bowl. He threw the glass bowl.
I love it. I love it. All right, guys. Well, I want to make sure that we leave some time for the audience, but let's give Ken a round of applause. This guy's crushing it. So, Bill, if you would do the honors, if you've got a question, please raise your hand. And actually, you're just going to step right up here to the front right here.
Yeah, just right in the middle of the aisle there, please.
Yeah, tell me your name, and that'll be fun.
My name is Gabriela. Thank you so much for all the nuggets that you shared. I wanted to ask you, because you talked about looking at your purpose and staying focused. I heard also the power of discernment and also the courage to learn new things. Mm-hmm. I was wondering if you could share some ideas on how to keep that focus, like using discernment and learning, because I know one of the game changers that is emerging more and more is ChatGPT, anything artificial intelligence. I know a lot of people are afraid of that. So I was just wondering if you could share some ideas. Thank you.
Yeah, you mentioned two words, discernment and then the curiosity or learning. And I think that you've got knowledge and you've got wisdom. And I think discernment to me is all about wisdom. I think discernment's a skill. Some people have it naturally, more of it than others. But I'm going to combine those two for you. Number one, how do we stay in a position of always learning? I think one thing is that I would tell you is be very careful. Because of these smartphones we have, we now are consuming more content than ever before. I remember, I feel like 10 years ago, I would go to a Chipotle or you pick your favorite lunch place, and you'd be standing in line waiting for your food, and you'd be looking around and maybe having a conversation with the person in front of you, maybe not, but you're at least looking around and just people watching, maybe thinking about something. Now, if you go in the same place, what's everybody doing? Mm-hmm. Head down, staring at their phone, and they're consuming content. Some of it's good, some of it's probably not. And so I think that we need to be aware that to have a posture, and I'm using the word posture on purpose, posture, the idea of like I'm positioning myself. Posture is about position. I have terrible posture. But if I'm in a posture of learning and reflecting and creating, that's better than just consuming. So I think that we've got to, number one, put our guardrails up and go, we now more than ever are consuming, but we don't get quiet and sit down and think about what we learn. I read one biography a month. That's a challenge that I've been going on for a while, and I do it because I want to read of men and women from history. And when I read a book, for instance, I've got some time to actually reflect on it. And then how does it inform me? I get half of my content ideas from other people because they challenge me and inspire me, and then I go, oh, here's how I can apply that. And so I think that's the first thing. Are you learning the right way? Are you learning the right things? Stop being a consumer and be a creator. And creators, they learn things that inspire them. That's the first thing. Oh, he wants to drop something? Oh, boy. Yeah. All right. Now on the discern. So for instance, ChatGPT and AI.
Love it.
Pay attention to those tools because they are going to inform the way you work. And I think you need to be savvy. And so pay attention to the trends. But then guard yourself, and not be too consumed. And I would say that's where discernment comes in. Be wise in how you spend your time and how you learn, how you position yourself for the future. It's a good question.
Love it. All right, we got another question over here.
Okay, I have one.
Bill
Wallace, Success North Dallas. What is your legacy?
Great question.
Yeah, it's a gigantic question.
It's huge.
And I appreciate the spirit on it, so I'll do my best to answer it, but I reserve the right to change it 5 years from now. But I'll tell you the part of my legacy, Bill, that will not change if you meet me 5 years from now. I want to be a really good husband and a really good dad. And I'll tell you where it comes from. There's a little lesson here, hopefully, because I've been wrestling with this Interestingly, Bill, I've been wrestling with this in my quiet time. I've worked really hard, Trevor and Mark, to get where I am, really hard. And it was a big goal, and it's not easy to do. I'm not patting myself on the back. It's not easy, and I've gotten here. And I'll never forget, Bill, the first day that I was on my book tour for the Proximity Principle, and I was in a hotel in Portland, Oregon. It was the last stop on my tour. And I was exhausted, and I think it was 8 o'clock. I still hadn't woken up, and all of a sudden, for whatever reason, I heard my phone buzzing. And I woke up and I looked at my phone, and it was just covered. Texts, email, voicemail, and it was my friends and family, coworkers calling to tell me that I debuted #1 on the Wall Street Journal bestseller list. And it was very emotional and amazing. And I remember calling Stacy, had my glasses on, hadn't even brushed my teeth. I'm just literally sitting in bed going, wow, God, right? Yeah. I'm going somewhere with this. So I replied to all the texts and emails and called Stacy, and we cried together and we prayed together and thanked the Lord for this, this great achievement. It felt really freaking fantastic. And this is about 30-minute time lapse. And then I looked at the phone, and I was like, I got to get ready. And I got in the shower, and I changed, and I got ready, and I walked out of my hotel room, and that's when it hit me that my life hadn't changed. I'm still the same guy. And, Casey's sitting here. I got the opportunity to be on Casey's show a little while ago, and she said something to me. And she said, do people just freak out when they meet you or something along those lines? And sometimes, yes. But here's the deal. If I get hit by a bus tomorrow, I will have made a tremendous impact that God put me on this planet. There's no question about that. But people will move on really fast. And none of my fans are going to show up at my funeral. They don't need to. And so I think we've got to make sure that we understand that we have a short time on this planet, and it will only be the people closest to you that the word legacy truly rings. And so stop worrying about all that other crap. Do your best, but love those family members and friends that God has put in your life. Love them very, very well. To me, that's the only legacy we got. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
All right. Well, Mark, your mic. Yeah, he's about to mic drop for real. He's about to really mic drop.
Yeah.
Okay, so real quick, we got a few more minutes in here, and I want to make sure, because today you have an amazing event going on. Talk to me about your career breakthrough event. I want to hear about it.
Yeah, so because I enjoy interacting with people at live events, whenever I do a keynote, if I get an hour keynote or 45, I usually spend half on speaking and half taking live questions from the crowd. I just enjoy it. I enjoy teaching on some content and then trying to apply it. So I had this vision a couple years ago, and this is the fruition of that. I wanted to go to smaller theaters. Small, intimate theaters allow for small, intimate audiences. And intimate audiences allow for what I believe is real breakthrough. And so we decided to test it for 4 cities. We did Kansas City, Chicago, Atlanta, and then we'll finish it out tonight here in the Dallas area. And, it's just been special, man. The crowds are about anywhere from 180 to 220 people. And I speak for about 20 minutes, and I just tell people, you came here for the breakthrough tonight. So we have mics on both sides of the stage, and people stand up, and we do heart surgery, and we just help people by meeting them where they are, making major decisions. Some trying to just get ideas. I'll tell you one quick story, because this is what breakthrough's about, and then I think we got something fun to share. But we're in Kansas City, and a little lady stands up to my right. And she gets up, and you can tell she's a little bit nervous, because she's in front of a crowd. And she asked her a question. She said, Ken, I'm working 2 jobs. It's about, 80 hours, 85 hours a week, and it's killing me. And I just cut her off. Because sometimes the question they want to ask is not the question I need to answer. Do you understand?
I know what you're talking about.
And so I was like, I already know what's up with this gal. And so I said, why are you working 85 hours a week? She said, well, I was in a really rough marriage, and it was abusive, and he didn't work, and he made me work 2 jobs, and so I knew what was up. And so I said, well, are you still in the marriage? No, thankfully I got out of that. Okay, great. She said, but I'm making really good money. I said, sweetheart, I don't care how much money you're making. You're exhausted emotionally, physically, mentally. You need to heal from this abusive relationship. She just broke. She's just broke right there. And so I went on to just kind of give her some more advice. And so we wrapped up, and I was starting to walk across the stage to the other side of the stage where the other mic is. And I stopped, and I felt the press of the Holy Spirit. And I just said, I've never done this before. And some dude yells at me, do it! And he didn't even know what I was going to say. And I said, all right, sir. I said, I just feel like there, I don't know if it's one person, 5 people. There's some people in this room tonight that you connected to this young lady's story. And because I told her, I said, you gotta walk away from one of those jobs. She went on to tell me, by the way, she was pregnant with his baby. Oh. And so I was like, you got to take care of you so you're taking care of the baby. Anyway, all I said, I feel like there's some people in this room tonight that are supposed to walk with this young lady. And no sooner do I say that than a woman pops up about 5 rows in front of me. She goes, Ken, I went through this 7 years ago. I want to walk with her through this. Whew. And then a grandmama stand up on this side. She says, Ken, my daughter walked through this, and I'm going to walk with her through this. Man. And then another lady stood up, and it was that kind of stuff happening. And, that young lady walked out that night with 3 new friends who were going to lock arms with her and help her. And so that's the kind of stuff that happens at these events, man. Like, people start crying, they're snotting on the mic, and it's all good.
Yes.
And so, I just try to meet people where they are, and we just try to lower the barrier. We try to make it feel like a family night. So anyway, career breakthrough, it's tonight. I don't even have the details in front of me. It's on my website, kencoleman.com/events. But anyway, it's the joy of my life, man, to meet people who are in pain and give them some purpose from the pain. That's what we do.
Well, and I feel like, and I love what you're talking about, and I feel like there's a few people in this room that could value from attending an event.
I think so.
That. You think so?
I think so.
I think so. I know so.
I would like them to be my guests for free.
Oh, you would? Okay.
Absolutely. So, there it is. Now we're
okay. The coup d'etat.
Yeah. So any of our live audience tonight that would like to come, my guy Damon is here. We'll get you the venue location. We'll look it up. I'm sorry, I don't know.
It's in Plano.
Guys. It's in Plano, Texas. Yeah. It's at a great theater. We still have some seats left, and so we will give them a free ticket for them and a guest.
All they got to say is who you know, right?
Just say Who You Know podcast. I was there live today. Ken comped me, and we'll have books there. I can sign books, and if anybody. So I would love for them. And I know Dallas is a big place, and this is last minute, but you're certainly welcome.
Absolutely. Well, guys, another round of applause, Ken Coleman. Guys, that's the show. It's all about who you know. Bye. Trevor Houston here, and I want to thank you for tuning in to the Who You Know Job Networking Show. We hope you've been inspired, encouraged, educated, and entertained all at the same time. For information on our different events, workshops, partners, or partnership opportunities available, check out whoyouknow.show for more details. And be on the lookout for our new mobile app. You never know how this show could help someone you know. And if we've made an impact or put a smile on your face today, don't forget to hit that share button on your way out. Until next week, it's all about who you know. Bye.
Faith without works is dead. I don't wanna die so soon. I got moves to make instead. I ain't